Hey YouTube, this is The Art of Prepping. I'm just going to take a peek in my, they don't make these books anymore. This is the Reader's Digest Back to Basics, How to Learn and Enjoy Traditional American Skills. It's a homesteading and a pioneering book. It's pretty much the how-to or the Bible of outdoors and survival, if you ask me. They just definitely don't make this kind of stuff anymore, at least of this quality. And of course, Reader's Digest just doesn't really participate in this kind of in this type of dialogue and writing anymore. But I just wanted to go over two things. First is the tent styles. Now, what's so interesting about this is, and also I'm going to go over some knots in the future, another video about this, to help you with how you can set up a tarp system or a tent system and so forth. But in terms of your tents, now they have some different names now, but for the most part, tents are tents. So they don't really have a lot of changes. You have your tube tents, and I mean this book is probably like maybe 40 years or so old. So I mean, some of this stuff just doesn't change. Technology is what it is, or at least the form factor is. So you got tube tents, pup tents, geodescent tents, forest tents, which is kind of like, it's becoming more like a superstructure, or super shelter, I'm sorry. And you have mountain tents. And there's other ones too, probably now, but, it gives you an idea of the simplicity. Of course, you have like lean-to like tarp shelters, and, even now with a lot of the pole technology, the fiberglass or even the aluminum rods, a lot of self-contained upright tents. They don't really require a lot of the staking and the wire or the cording to provide a structural element to it. And those are pretty much what I would recommend for the most part. Would be self-contained, that you wouldn't need guidelines or wires or cording to enhance the structural integrity. So that's what I would recommend. And lastly, over here, we're just talking about sleeping bags. These are the top 3 ones. I see that these are pretty much still the top ones even today in 2016, and it's the Mummy sleeping bag, the barrel sleeping bag, and the rectangular one. I think the rectangular one is the most common you see at big box stores, but they do typically have Mummy ones. I personally like the Mummy one. It is pretty much the most efficient. The thing you have to look for with any of these is going to be the rating, the comfort rating, and the materials. Some things dry faster than others. If you have like a goose or a duck down, just having a down as the insulation or the insulator is going to be much more difficult to dry out if it ever got damp or wet, versus maybe a synthetic material such as a type of polyester fill. So you have to figure out, the compromise there. Of course, there's usually a pretty large price difference between down and, polyester or whatever your synthetic fill is. So with that, though, these are just some things to consider when you're purchasing a tent or a sleeping bag. I personally go with the Mummy ones, and I like basically self-contained, holding upright tents that you can have the aluminum stays, or the fiberglass ones are kind of becoming more out of style because they break down with sun, and over time they start cracking. So I'd probably go with really good quality aluminum, stays to help keep your tent up, and definitely carry some aluminum tent stakes. They're a lot lighter weight and a lot stronger, and they won't crack like the plastic ones. So anyways, you guys take care of yourself. I'll talk to you real soon.